Sometimes life is messy. Have you ever wished you could refocus your mind, home, relationships, and work life? Join us as we use research-based information to make practical changes and simplify life. This is Life Simplified.
Welcome to Life Simplified. If you have joined us so far this month, you know that May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we're talking about all things mental health. We're pulling all of our resources this month from mentalhealthamerica.org's Mental Health Awareness Month Toolbox. And so today, our topic is going to be one that I think all of us can relate to. And so when I say this word, I'd just like to know what comes to mind for you. And that word is fine. What do you think, ladies? When you hear someone or you yourself use the word fine, what do you think that means?
So in the context of like, I'm fine. That's
Mm-hmm.
okay. Either I'm upset, like emotionally like mad or about to cry. That's what it means for
Mm-hmm.
me.
Okay. So maybe like anything except actually
Yeah,
okay.
not fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
it's like
fine
that.
means fine.
Yeah, like you're happy, you're fine, and then you're mad. Like you're right there in the middle of it to go either way. Like, don't talk to me kind of fine though.
Yes, I like that. We're gonna dig into that too. So that's good. I'm glad you brought that out.
I don't have much to add other than the same, like, I'm anything but fine, more than likely if I say I'm fine.
Yes. I think we all feel that, right? Like if we say I'm fine, it either means I need you to back up because I'm not fine and I'm not talking about it, or I'm fine and I don't feel comfortable talking about it. But either way, I'm probably not legitimately okay. There's something going on. And did find a saying that some therapists like to use, and being that my background's in mental health, I really like this definition of fine. And so they break it down as FINE, meaning feelings inside not expressed. And I really like that. You have those feelings and you're holding them inside and you're not sharing them. And that is what's happening most of the time when we say that we're fine, or when we have a friend or family member say that they are fine. They really are feeling something, but they're holding it in and they're not sharing it. And sometimes that's not a great thing to do. So I'm pulling from Mental Health America's toolkit today from two different publications. So if you're listening and you want to see these in their entirety, they're there for you. Go check them out at mentalhealthamerica.org. But the ones we're looking at today are what to say when someone tells you they're fine, but they're not. And then things you can say when you're not fine. And so everything we're going to talk about is going to come straight from these resources. So I really like how they open one of these publications. So I'm going to read it to you. It says, fine, okay, all right. We've all had someone tell us that they were one of those things and known that it couldn't be further from the truth. Maybe it was the look on their face, the tone of their voice, or their body language that gave them away. Or maybe you've noticed that they have been acting differently lately. Distress can show up in many ways. And I think we can all relate to that. We've either been that person that's been like, I'm fine, I'm good, I'm okay, or we've tried to reach out to somebody and they've told us that, and we've known in our gut that that was not really their truth, but they weren't ready to share with us what was going on. And so when we recognize this in someone, it's really normal for us to want to reach out and help. Like if you say you're fine, but I feel it in me that you're not okay, I want to do something. But a lot of times we just simply don't know how to respond or what to say or what to do. And so that's what we're going to kind of talk about today is like, how can we open the door for conversation or for reaching out to someone when they tell us that they're fine, but our gut says, no, I'm not buying that. I'm not feeling that, because it's normal for us to want to help. So it goes on to tell us that while what you say will likely be different depending on how well you know the person. So if this is a really close family member or friend, you're probably going to respond to their fine or their okay differently than if it's a stranger or just an acquaintance, someone you've recently met, maybe even a coworker. But they give us some ideas of things that we can say to kind of encourage an open environment, a safe environment for that person to maybe open up a little bit more about what they're going through in that moment. So I'm going to read some of these things that we could say, and then I'd just like for the ladies to discuss with me for a minute if you've ever said this to someone, or if anyone's ever said it to you, and if you feel like it would be helpful or not helpful when you're in that kind of a headspace. So one of them is, are you sure? If you want to talk, let me know. So just being like, hey, I'm going to check that. Like, you say you're okay, but are you really? And you know, if you want to talk, I'm here for you. Let me know and we'll chat. Another one is, it seems like something is bothering you. I'm here to listen if you want to share. And I really like that one because it lets them know, like, I feel something's not quite right. And I'd love for you to open up to me if you're comfortable. Another one, I think I like this one. I don't know that I've ever said it, but I could see myself trying to say it. And it says, I've been fine before. I'm here if you want to talk about it. And so I think that's kind of that way to be like, yeah, I've been fine also. I know what fine means. And so almost like I see you because I've been you, and letting them know that you can relate to what's going on. And then just saying, do you want to get a coffee? Do you want to go to lunch? Do you want to grab a bite to eat? Do you want to take a walk later? Do you want to meet up sometime? And then simply saying, I feel like we have a lot to catch up on. And so you just really leave it open-ended. It's more of like, let's get together, let's hang out. Maybe we can just chat. And you're opening the door for that safe space to sit, to talk, and to have open dialogue where maybe whatever's going on can just kind of come out organically and not feel quite as forced or pressured. The last one they share is, that wasn't very convincing. I'm here if you want to chat. So that one, you know, depending on how well you know the person, you may or may not feel comfortable saying that one, but that definitely would let them know that you sense something is off and you want to be there for them. And I will tell you, in my life, there have been multiple times that both professionally and personally, I've read that something was not okay with someone. I've just felt like in my gut, this person is saying they're okay, but they're not okay. And I will tell you that my go-to, and I don't know if this works for everybody, but my go-to has always been like, hey, how are you doing? And when they'll be like, oh, I'm good, or I'm fine, or what, I just kind of look at them and pointedly say, okay, how are you really doing? And I think sometimes we need that because in our conversations just every day, we're so casual and we're so like, hey, how are you? I'm good, I'm fine. And we don't feel like someone is asking us that question to really hear how we're doing. We feel like what we're supposed to say is, I'm good, I'm fine, or something short like, I'm busy, or you know, something like that, but nothing of depth. And so I feel like for me, I've noticed that if I ask that and I get that typical what everyone thinks they should respond as answer, but I ask it again and go, okay, I hear you, but how do you really feel? That I almost every time I get the truth the second time I ask the question. And it always goes a little bit deeper and there's more there. But I think it's just a matter of like asking the second time lets them know I really want to know. Like I really care how they're doing. I'm not just trying to say it to be polite. So, ladies, thinking about these things and your personal experiences, have you ever used any of these type of methods to dig deeper, or has anyone used it for you and it opened the door for you to be more honest than maybe you would have been?
My go-to is typically I'm fine, whether I am or I'm not. And I think mine oftentimes, depending on the relationship, is mainly just not to burden someone else. You know, everybody's got their stuff. And when we're just out and say, how are you? Oh, good. How are you? I'm fine. You know, everything's good. Everything's fine, because I don't want to be a burden. So I think those are really good ways to then be like, no, I really care. I really care about how you are. And I think that would be really good for me to use with my youngest, she doesn't necessarily say she's fine, but she always says nothing is wrong. And when I can clearly tell that something is wrong, and so then I want to know what's wrong. So you're going to tell me instead of maybe I can just stick with that's not very convincing, because I definitely would say that to her.
Yeah, I'm not buying that. I'm not
Yes.
believing what you're saying to me.
Yes. But I'll be here if you want to talk, rather than continuing to push.
You can put the ball in her court and then let her come to you when she's ready.
I don't know about you guys, and Tiffany, when you was talking about, and somebody says, "Oh, I'm fine," and then you turn around, it's like, "How are you truly going? How are you truly feeling?" That kind of makes it more personal to me. Then that makes me feel okay. Well, they truly want to know, is something wrong, and then you're still kind of standoffish, especially if it's not, a really close family member or a friend that normally checks on you, but that person may see something and they truly are asking, because they do care. So sometimes it's hard for me to step back and say, "Oh, I need to check on that person," because I'm in my own little world, my own little bubble. But we all, have different things, like you said, going on in our lives. Don't want to burden anybody, but sometimes if you see it, just ask.
And I think it's the environment too. Like I'm thinking about workplace. Like if you can tell and you're just, are you okay? If you're in a group or there's a few people standing around, they're probably less likely to open up, to where you can kind of go to their office and, hey, I noticed, you weren't yourself this morning in our meeting. What's going on? Or something like that. Even if you're not really close with them, that one-on-one interaction probably may help them open up a little bit better.
Yeah, I definitely think setting matters, because if we're in a group of people, that is definitely not going to be a safe space to share all the things. We want to have healthy boundaries, particularly around our emotions and what's going on with us, and having a complete open up in front of a lot of people can be intimidating, and you feel like, okay, everybody just wants to know my business. They don't care about me. But taking that step to then go to them one on one and say, "Hey, I noticed that," they are seen. And I think we all just want to be seen. And I think that's why when we get the question the first time, we're like, this is just a formality. But when we're asked this a second time, or if someone does take the time to like come to us later in a more private setting, we're like, okay, they saw me and they truly care, or they would not have taken the time to ask a second time or to come to me at a different time, to make that effort that goes beyond just the everyday conversation.
I'll be more mindful when in my personal life to use some of those phrases. Because
Yeah.
now I'm like, you're not fine. What's going on? Just tell me already.
But that's okay, because you think about it, there are people in your life that you're so close to that they expected that to come from Amanda.
Yeah.
They
But I
expect
could
that
be
response.
a little nicer about it. Like if you want to share, I'm here. Other than, okay, come on, just tell me already.
Spit it out. Come on, let's go. Yeah. No, I get that. So, I mean, I think everyone has to find their approach. It's going to be different depending on the relationship that you have with a person, how well you know them, and the atmosphere that you're in at the time that you notice that something may be going on. And so, like, the next step of that is like, okay, so I asked the question, I dug a little bit deeper, I took it there so that they would have a safe space to share. Now they're opening up to me. What do I do now? Because that's what everybody's afraid of. They're like, okay, I can ask the question, but what do I do with, all right, they're talking to me now, and I don't feel like I'm trained to do this, and I don't know how I'm supposed to respond. So that's what we're going to talk about now, is some really solid tips on do's, and then we'll talk about the don'ts when someone finally opens up and they admit, nope, you're right, I'm not fine. I'm very much probably the opposite. So the first thing we can do is so simple. It's listen. And just truly listen. A lot of times when we're listening, we're formulating whatever we're going to say next. And so we're thinking more in our head about what we're about to say instead of listening to what they're truly saying to us. And so, like, really actively listening for understanding, to try and really understand where this person's coming from, what their experience is, and what they're trying to say to us. And that can be hard, but that means we have to eliminate distractions. So it's not the time for me to look at my phone. If we're in a loud space, we need to like kind of take ourselves away into a quieter space, and making that eye contact and just really trying to focus in on that person so that they know I'm here, you've got my attention, and I'm trying my best to understand what you're sharing with me. That's really, really key. you might want to ask if they've thought about what they need to feel better. And I think we forget to do this, but the reality is we are all the expert on us. We know ourselves better than any other human knows us, and we know what typically is helpful for us, and we know what is harmful for us. And so it may be that they just need you to say, so what do you think you need? What would help you feel better? And if they can identify that, then help them find that. Like, how can I assist you in meeting that need? And if they can't, then offer, your support and to talk it through with them and help them to kind of, as they brainstorm what they think they might need to help them feel like they're in a better space. But sometimes they just need to be asked that question. And we don't always think about that. We don't always think like, well, they might know the answer to this problem. They just haven't processed through it. Another thing we can do is make sure to keep things confidential. I think this is the one thing that really breaks our trust with other people is we don't think that they're going to keep what we've shared with them within the conversation. And so the best thing I can do for someone that I care about and is open up to me is let them know this conversation doesn't go past the two of us. Now, as long as what they're sharing isn't life threatening. If it's something that you feel like could harm them or someone else, then safety is number one. But if they're not sharing something with you that is life threatening, maintaining that confidentiality and that trust is really important because if not, they may never open up again. So remember, safety first. Make sure everybody is going to be safe and no one is sharing something that is really harmful and could be dangerous to anyone. But other than that, we really want to try and not share people's business. Nobody likes that. I think that's why we have a hard time opening up to begin with, because we've all been burned at some point in our life somehow. And so we kind of keep things close to us. The next one is just normalize. Assuring someone that a mental health concern is common and that there are resources and that this is something that people experience every day, that they are okay. They are normal. This is not something that's, struggling is normal, but there is hope and there are resources and there are people who care and can help them. And so kind of helping someone feel like, okay, this is not something that is abnormal and I'm not, have a unique issue that it's not solvable, helping them not feel alone. I'm not alone and I'm not the only one going through this. And there is hope. Hope is key in mental health concerns. Hope is huge. The last do that they share is prepare to follow up. So it takes a lot of courage to open up about what you're going through and what you're feeling and how you're struggling or what's happening in your life. And so you can't just kind of open that up and let them share and be like, all right, I got you. And let me know if you need something. We have to check back in with them and we can't expect them to check back in with us. We're always going to say, let me know if you need anything, because I think we're just kind of trained to do that. But the reality is we have to be the one to go to them and check back in with them because they don't want to burden us. That's why they didn't open up the first time we asked them how they're feeling and they were fine. So we want to make sure that we follow up, that we touch base. And if you don't have their contact information, so if this is not someone you're close to, make sure before you end that conversation that you say, hey, can I get your cell phone number? So maybe we can meet up again or whatever. Finding a way to be able to get in contact with them again is really, really important. Just kind of thinking about all those do's. Does that bring up anything for you, ladies? Any thoughts or anything that either is surprising or you think, yeah, that's definitely key?
Yes, I really have an issue as far as trusting. Yeah, you think they're in your circle, but they're really not in your circle type thing. And,
Yeah.
and somebody may genuinely be asking you how you're doing, and then you're very skeptical of that because you have a trust issue with people that with your, with whatever's going on with you, if they would go back and share that information with other people, it's kind of my thing. So I have a really hard time letting people in my circle.
Yeah. I mean, I think that a lot of people struggle with trust, because we have all kind of been hurt in one way or another, and probably realistically we've all hurt another human in one way or another, whether we did it intentionally or we let it slip, or we're, sometimes our humanness catches up with us and we say and do things that do hurt other humans. And that's why that confidentiality is so huge. We talk about it a lot in mental health, particularly for professionals, because that is what we do. But all of us, when we're talking with people and we're caring about people, if I truly care, I don't need to share that information unless I'm asked to share it, or I need to share it to keep someone safe. But just for the fun of it, that's ugly. That doesn't help anybody, and we do more damage, and there's even less that they're going to open up in the future. So that confidentiality is huge when someone finally feels ready, like they're going to share, is letting them know, like, I really respect what you're saying and I'm not airing your dirty laundry.
And you said that listening was key too, but I loved how you said listening to understand, because I think just generally speaking, when we are having communication with others, sometimes we have the story already in our head of why someone is saying they're fine, but we know they're not fine. We may already have it in our mind why we think that is, and we may be listening for evidence of what we already thought rather than listening to understand.
Yeah, we can try and fill in the blanks ourselves, like like we're playing a Mad Lib, and I'm gonna fill in what the story is supposed to go like, and we don't have all the pieces of the puzzle, and so what I assume the person is trying to share with me may not at all be what they're saying. And so when I listen for understanding, part of that is basically fact checking. Like, let me repeat back to you what I'm hearing, and I'll even say, so what I hear you saying is, and it sounds very clinical, and it is, but it works, and that's why we do it. But what I hear you saying is, and I fill it in, and then you have every opportunity to be like, yes, that is so it, or no, let's try that again. But I won't know that I'm off if I don't ask that question. So, repeating back and clarifying and doing all of those things, fact checking is huge. We do it in every other part of our life. Every time we hear anything, we're like, hold on, is that right? Is this true? I must check with someone who knows all this. Why not? Like, again, like we said, we ask them what they might need because they know them better than anybody else. And so, fact checking what they're saying to you, you're going to actually get the right message. So that's a good point. I mean, you got to listen for understanding. You got to check that you are actually understanding what they were trying to share, not what you think they're trying to share. It's big. It's really big. And most of us never truly listen. And so we have to be very intentional and very aware when we're listening to someone and really focus in, because it's not our normal way of communicating. Typically, we're so fast paced that we don't slow down and check for understanding in everyday conversations. So there's a lot of really good do's for us. Now, there are some don'ts that we want to keep in mind as well, because we can all have really good intentions when we let someone open up to us, but if we go the wrong direction, sometimes we can do more harm than good, and none of us wants to do that. Like, our goal is to help and to make a difference, not to make things worse. So there's a few things that we want to not do when someone is opening up to us. And so one thing is, we flat out don't want to say, you shouldn't think that way. Telling people how they should and should not think and feel is very dangerous territory, because we have not lived the same life experience as them. And so that's treading on very dangerous ground. And so, it's hard enough to have conversations about our mental health, and if we're struggling in one way or another, and if we immediately should somebody, they will shut down, and then we have lost that opportunity to make a difference and make a connection. The next one is, we don't want to use the word crazy because stigma. And here's the thing, we can innocently do it. And actually, like, I have innocently used the word myself pretty recently. And I even like caught myself, and I stopped and was like, I don't want to use that word. That is not the language that I want to portray. And I know that sometimes we use it as a slang term and it can mean whatever, but the word crazy itself, particularly when we're talking about mental health concerns, is really negative and really stigmatizing and really just kind of off-putting. And so when we know better, we try to do better. And I think we do that on a daily basis. And so that's just one of those things, like trying really hard, because vocabulary matters. The words we use really matters. And so just being aware of that can be really helpful. Don't tell someone what they should do. Instead, ask what they want you to help them with. Again, that goes back to them being the expert of themselves. And so I'm not shoulding you, I am helping you. And I'm asking you what you need for me to help you. So I'm letting you be the expert of your own needs. And I think that is really important. Do not assume that they want advice. Sometimes we don't want any advice. Sometimes we just want to be heard and we just want to not feel alone. Sometimes we just need to talk. Like we just need to get it out and process it outside of our head, hear the words and have someone to bounce it off of, but we don't necessarily need someone to fix us. And so we have to be really careful because, and that's where we go back to that, like, what do you need me to do? And they may say, I just need you to listen to me. Well, cool, I can do that. I got you. Or they say, I need some resources or I need whatever. But checking for that and just not assuming that they need you to try and solve all of their problems. Don't make comparisons. So one thing that we want to do, sometimes we try to like compare people's situations to other situations because we want them to feel better, but what it really does is it kind of minimizes. So what we want to do is we want to stay away from telling someone, oh, it could be worse. Oh, this could have happened, or oh, you could be in this situation, or oh, what about so and so? They have it so much worse off than you. All that does is invalidate how they're feeling and their experience, and it really just diminishes what they're trying to share with you. And we don't ever want to do that. And so be really careful that we don't try and be like, oh, it could be worse. We don't want to take on trying to fix all of their problems. We want to offer help where it's appropriate. So if they mention something and we know we have a connection or a resource that would be helpful for them, we can lend that if it's appropriate. But we don't want to get in a trap of trying to problem solve for them, especially if we know it probably would be best left to connecting them with a professional to help them work through their concerns. We can offer help where appropriate and where we actually can, but we don't want to try and be problem solvers. That is not our role. Our role is to listen, to ask how we can help, and to connect with resources when and where we can. I feel like a lot of these make sense. How do you ladies think about these don'ts? I think sometimes it's really good. We think about what do I need to do, but also like what don't I need to do is nice to kind of have in the back of our heads because we really don't want to mess it up when someone is opening up to us.
I think about my kids, because they'll come to me for, anything, and I want them to come to me. But I also got to remember that they are young adults and they need to also figure out what's best for them. Instead of giving my opinion on a situation, I had to learn to just sit there and let them talk to me because sometimes I want to put, my 2 cents in, and I tried really hard as they've got older not to. Now, if they ask me, I'm gonna share my opinion, but then I have them come to me whenever they're like sad, something big's going on in their lives. They don't need mama to get on to them. They need mama to listen. Being able to do that, it's hard. It's very hard because, they need that. So for me, having to realize that that's what I need to do has been a very big step because, like I said, mama's very opinionated. She says things that she probably shouldn't, to them, but that's one thing I've learned for myself with me and my children.
Yeah, and we want to fix. Like as mamas,
Absolutely.
like for our children,
Absolutely.
we're like, I want to fix it. Like I want to make it better right now. I don't want to watch the struggle. But we know, like we'll take the old, like the butterfly. We know it's got to struggle out of the cocoon so that it can fly, so that it can be what it was meant to be. But it can be hard watching for sure. And yeah, that's a good one for us parents to keep in mind.
And sometimes they just need a vent. They don't need anything other than you to sit there and listen and let them vent to you. And that's it, and I'm afraid, I've always been afraid my kids won't come to me, for things, and they still do. And I'm very thankful for that. So I try to really hard to have that connection and that relationship with them of just sitting and listening.
And I find it interesting because I don't want someone to fix something for me. I want to vent or let me, unless I ask for it, because I do ask for advice quite frequently, but I'm ready to do that for my youngest mainly. My oldest, it's strange because I can just listen, and usually I'll say, did you want help, or you just want me to listen? And I've really tried to do that with my youngest too. Are we problem solving, or am I listening? And that's hard for me to do because I'm a fixer, even though I don't want someone else to tell me what to do. So
I think sometimes when it's family members or friends that we like are really emotionally attached to, we want to fix because our own anxiety is increasing. And so we're not just fixing it for them, we're fixing it for us because I'm starting to feel emotions that I'm uncomfortable with, whether it's fear or anxiety or other things, maybe hurt, anger, depending on what the situation is we're not only trying to fix their feelings, we're trying to fix our own feelings, but we don't let them be the expert of themselves when we do that. We're going to kind of shift gears just a little bit for this last little section of our episode today. We've been talking about how we can have those conversations with others when they tell us that they're fine and we know that they're not so fine. But sometimes we are the ones who are not so fine. And how do we respond when the question is asked of us? And so this next publication that we're going to kind of work through together today is called Things You Can Say When You're Not Fine. And I think that's great because we all have those moments and those days where people ask us what's up, and we may or may not be at the place where we want to share it. There are some things that we can say. And so I'm going to go through these one at a time and we can kind of discuss. Ladies, if you have any thoughts, just jump in there. But they break it down in a way that I really, really love because they talk about I'm not fine. And we talk about whatever the reason is, we're not fine. And then there is what to say when I want to talk about it and what to say when I don't want to talk about it. Because like Joni said at the beginning of this episode, when I say I'm fine, I could be covering up emotions because I'm not ready to acknowledge them yet, or I could be covering up because I know what they are, but I don't want to talk about it. I'm not in a place where I'm ready to talk about whatever that situation is. And so sometimes we do want to talk, but we don't know how to say it. And sometimes we're just not ready. So there's some examples for us both ways. Under the I am not fine, the first thing is I'm actually going through some stuff. Now, that's a way you could say, so what's up? I'm going through some stuff. If you want to talk about it, you can say, do you want to get coffee, lunch, dinner, and chat later? So you can offer like, hey, why don't we go? I'd love to chat about it, but I don't want to do it right this minute. Like, let's find a place that's more private. Maybe we have a little more time and we can be a little more focused on one another. Or if I don't want to talk about it, I'm going through some stuff and I'm not ready to talk about it, I could say, thanks for asking, but I don't feel like going into detail right now. And I think that's great. And I think sometimes we feel bad answering like that, but like, I think that makes sense. Like, I appreciate you asking. I appreciate that you saw me, but I'm just not in the headspace where I can really kind of discuss what the situation is right now. We let them know we're glad that you saw me. I'm glad you checked in, but I'm just not there yet. Someone asks the question and we're not fine. We can say, thanks for asking. Blank has been stressing me out lately. So we could say, work has been stressing me out lately. The kids have been stressing me out lately. Our routine or schedule or travel ball or whatever we're doing in our life has been stressing me out lately. If we want to talk about it, did you hear about blank? And then you can share about like something that's bothering you. Like, did you hear about this? You're opening the conversation yourself. Or if you don't want to talk about it, you can say, I appreciate that. I'm just not ready and I don't have the time to talk about it right now. I really love these answers for when you're just not there yet, because I think that's the hardest thing for us to do. It's like, this is the answer instead of saying, I'm fine. Like, this is the I'm acknowledging that I have a problem, but I'm just not trying to go there today. I'm going to go over a few more. I'm not going to go over all of them because you can look this up in the toolkit, but there are some others that I think are like, they're pretty good for us to think about. If someone asks you how you're doing and you want to talk about it, you could say, can I text you? Because maybe I'm just not ready to have this conversation right here, right now, around these other people, or I don't have the time. But like, can I text you about that? Like, I'd like to tell you what's going on, but just not right now or not right in this situation. So that's a good one. You could say, do you want to take a walk with me? How are you feeling? Can you go for a walk? Do you have time? Do you have time for a walk? And then I can get into what's going on. You could simply say, I need to vent. And I love that one because someone has asked you how you're doing and you say, I need to vent, and they know up front, okay, they're not asking for advice or problem solving. They just need to be heard. And so not only am I saying I need to say some stuff, but I'm letting you know you don't have to fix it. I just need you to hear me. Like, I just need someone to listen. So I like that. This one under I don't want to talk about it. One thing you could say is I don't feel like talking, but I'll take a hug. So if you are a touchy-feely person, you could be like, I'll take a hug. I will tell you that is okay, listeners. First of all, Ashley just did a thumbs down, which I love, and I am calling her out on it. So full disclosure, don't hug her. Some people are not huggers, and that's why this is good, because you're asking for the hug. They are not coming in and giving you a hug out of nowhere, which is good. That's a better thing to do. No touches that are not approved.
Well, I'm that person when somebody's sitting there in front of me crying. I'm like, can I give you a hug? Like, did you want a hug? So,
That's
I'm
funny.
awkward when it comes to hugging.
That reminded me of my son. Like he'll see somebody and be like, so and so need a hug. And he'll just like, do you want a hug? And I'm like, yeah, I don't always think you're like, I'm like, Ashley, like if somebody's crying, I'm like, do I ask them? Do I give them a hug? Do I just let them cry it out? Because I'm not a hugger either. And I'm just like, do you tissue? But it is good. I can understand. I think that would work for some people.
Okay, everybody's different. I will tell you, for me, I will hug. I grew up in a family of huggers. Like, my parents will hug a stranger on the street. It's all no, that's not who I am really now, but also a hug doesn't really shock me either. I'm not like, oh gosh, what happened here? But I will say, if I'm really struggling, if I'm having a hard time and I'm in a scenario where I'm really trying to hold it together, like this is not my space to break, if someone hugs me, I will lose it. I can no longer hold it together. So for me, like, if I need to let it go, that will do it. But if I'm trying to hold myself together until a better time and space, that will break me. And so I will be a little leery of that show of affection in that moment, because it kind of brings all the walls down. If you are a hugger and you're in a bad place and you get that hug, like, I think sometimes you drop the wall, and the emotions sometimes flow in a way that you may not be ready for. Some other ones on here, asking that person, if they say, how are you doing? Just being like, do you have time to listen? Checking in, like, you asked me the question and I'd love to share, but if you don't have the time to invest right now, then don't open it. Because sometimes we do that too. We say something and then they're like, oh, I got a meeting in 5 minutes. And then you're just kind of left exposed and not able to kind of have any closure. Some things you can just say, they're just really general. Like, you can just be like, not so great. To be honest, today's not a great day. I'm feeling kind of rough. Today's not my best day. I'm in my feels, or I've got all the feels. I think that's a more common verbiage that we hear. So those things can be said. Another one I really like is, I'm still thinking things through. Yes, there's some things going on. I'm processing. I'm not ready to share yet, but maybe I will be. And then that person knows, well, maybe I should check in with you in a few days. Maybe I should just touch base because there's something going on. And then another one, like, I'll reach out when I'm ready. I'll let you know when I need you, but thank you for being willing to be there. And then you can just simply be like, have you ever felt like? And that way you're checking for like, can you kind of understand where I'm coming from? Have you had this emotion? Have you experienced this experience? If so, like I need to bounce this off of you. So there's so many things we can say other than saying I'm fine. And I hope like listening to this helps everyone recognize like I can give an answer other than I'm fine, and I can let someone know I'm ready to talk, and I can also let someone know I'm not ready to talk, but there's something there and they can check on me later. And so we use fine so we don't have to share, but we can say other things that clues people in to the fact that something might be going on, but I don't want to go there today. And I think that's okay. And so I really do encourage everyone to pull up this list, to go to the toolkit, and maybe circle some that makes sense to you or that you think would be really helpful to use in the future. Because I think if we can all get away from using the word fine, that would be lovely, because I don't think anyone who's ever said they are fine has actually meant that they are truly fine. I want to thank everybody for joining us for this episode today. Life can be challenging, but every day shouldn't feel hard or out of control. If it does, there is hope and there is help. One free, private, and easy way to determine whether you're experiencing symptoms of a mental health condition is to take a mental health test at mhascreening.org. And also, if you or someone you know is struggling or in a crisis, help is available to you. Call or text 988 or chat 988lifeline.org. You can also reach the crisis text line by texting HELLO, HELLO, to 741-741. Thank you for joining us. We hope you'll be with us next week. This is Life Simplified.
Thanks for listening to Life Simplified. We are family and consumer sciences agents with the University of Kentucky Cooperative Extension Service. Contact us at lifesimplifiedpodcast@gmail.com.